Hi guys, this is Deepaboli, your host, and this is my channel Layman Reviews. And the last video that I did was the Tudors review. That's a series, The Tudors by Showtime, and I had done part one of that because The Tudors is a show that is primarily based on the life of King Henry the VIIIth of the Tudor dynasty of England, and it's a massive subject to go through. So if you haven't watched video one, I suggest that you check that out first, because in that I have explained the history of King Henry the VIIIth and his first three wives, and now I'm going to tackle with the other three. So yeah, the man had six wives back in that date, like 1500s to 1600s. Total scandalous celebrity type, I tell you. Even today, you type up like King Henry the VIIIth and you get these amazing results which can keep you up all night. Yeah, if you're like a history gossip fan like I am, man, that's your subject. And this is also your show. So I'm going to pick up in part two from where I left off in part one. So in part one, a quick recap. We've gone through three of his wives. His first wife was Catherine of Aragon, who was going to be the queen consort of the King of England anyway. But the person who was going to be King of England at that point of time was not Henry. It was Henry's elder brother. And Catherine of Aragon did come to the English court. The marriage did happen. But unfortunately, Henry's elder brother passed away before the consummation of the marriage could happen. So after that, technically, Catherine of Aragon was Henry's elder brother's widow, and she was also 13 years his senior. But when Henry ascended the throne, he did not want to break up that alliance, and hence he married he married Catherine of Aragon, and she became Queen Catherine of England. That was his first wife. Now, his first wife went out of the picture when he fell in love with Anne Boleyn, and that is when he separated the English church from the Holy Roman Empire, and he became the head of the English church. And he got his annulment from Catherine of Aragon, and he promptly married Anne Boleyn. Now, Anne Boleyn and him, well, that relationship went down the drain when Anne herself also could not give Henry a male heir. And also he had at this point had enough of Anne's tantrums, because Anne was, let's say, well, she wasn't really the kind of woman who would fit in back with the womanly behavior that was expected out of womankind in the 1500s or the 1600s. She was more independent, strong-minded, and he was looking for a way to get rid of her for good. So finally, in a desperate last attempt, Anne does something that is considered infidelity towards the king, and also definitely incest, and both are chargeable offenses, and she is executed. There goes Anne Boleyn. And after that comes in Lady Jane Seymour, whom King Henry had been courting even when Anne Boleyn had been alive. So then is Jane Seymour, and during the honeymoon phase, everything is fine. But after that, Jane takes a while to get pregnant. So she too faces Henry's wrath for a while, but then she does get pregnant. But after delivering a healthy baby boy, she herself dies from a very hard labor. So after that, Henry kind of goes into isolation for a while because he's really depressed, because during the end of her days, he had actually fallen in love with Jane Seymour. And that is where I had left off in the first video. So now I'm going to continue with the rest of the women who came into King Henry's life. So, after Lady Jane Seymour died, he was really depressed, and he was in isolation, and he wouldn't see anybody, he wouldn't hold court, and his advisors did not know what to do without the king at the forefront, because this is just after he has separated from the Holy Roman Empire, and he is at war with Spain, with France, with perpetually every country who follows Catholic Christianism, and that is probably every nation at that point of time. So there is a small dissenting group called the Protestants, who are now coming into a more influential position. So these people, they do not know what to do on the political front. They need their shrewd, cunning, manipulating king back in the game. So they know that the only way to do this is by making Henry catch someone else's eye. So what they do is that this distant cousin of the Duke of Norfolk, Lady Catherine Howard, she is brought to the English court, and she is a vivacious 17-year-old, and Henry instantly takes a liking to her, and he loves the fact that she's so young and so pretty, and she hardly seems tethered to the ground. She's always like floating around, and all that energy, and at the prime of her youth and all of that. So when Henry starts courting her, he proposes to her and everything. She says yes to all of it because she's 17 years old, and who doesn't want to be Queen of England, right? But after a couple of months after that marriage takes place and everything, she soon realizes that I've made a mistake, because come on, she's just 17. She's like, by the age standards of those days, she is by no standards a kid anymore. No, 17 is more than adult back in that time. Like, women had several children by the time they were 17. So but she's still just 17, and she's like at her prime, and well, Henry's pretty past his prime. So she soon discovers that she's dissatisfied, and well, she thinks she's made a huge mistake in marrying King Henry. And soon after, this affair begins between her and King Henry's personal groom, Thomas Culpeper. And for a while, everything is all happy and rosy, with a scandalous affair going on the sidelines that the king knows nothing about. It's all just like amazing. But after that, King Henry and Queen Catherine are due to leave for what was known as the Royal Passage. Now, the Royal Passage was basically the king and the queen visiting the north side of England, because this is the part that had risen in rebellion towards the decision of the fact that the English church was now going to be separated from the Holy Roman Empire and the Holy See. So this passage was mainly Henry going to that side of the country and forgiving the rebels and making peace. And at this time, he suddenly thinks, hey, it's also a great time to make peace with my eldest daughter, Princess Mary. Now, if you remember, I told you in the first video that Queen Catherine of Aragon had a very tragic end, and a lonely and a miserable one, because she didn't even get to see her daughter until the day she died. And she was like so lonely in that drafty castle with no money to pay workers to get in some firewood and warm the castle up. Now, that was basically because Princess Mary had not acknowledged Anne Boleyn as her queen and royal mother, and as punishment, she had been disinherited from the line of succession, and also she had not been given permission to visit her mother. So Princess Mary justifiably is very angry and everything, but she also does know that when her father approaches her, one, she has just this one parent left. She's very lonely, and she does not have the royal annual stipend anymore. She's disinherited from the line. So here comes the king saying, I'm sorry, and he says, I'll put you back in the line of succession, and you will start getting your royal annual income again. So, well, she says yes to the offer. What else can you do? But here's the catch. Henry does not do all of this because he suddenly feels remorse towards his treatment of Princess Mary, his eldest daughter. But he does so because during this time, his royal advisor is Thomas Cromwell. And Thomas Cromwell knows very well that Princess Mary is very much beloved by the subjects in the north. So she convinces Henry to do all of this, because if he is to take Princess Mary with him on the royal passage, then it would mean a lot for the northern subjects to see that Princess Mary is now supporting the king. And that in turn will convince them to support the king more wholeheartedly. So that is what it was. I mean, wow. Yeah. Anyway, so getting back to the story. So what happens is that during this trip, Catherine, obviously, like, she's carrying on her affair with Thomas Culpeper, because being Henry's personal royal groom, Thomas Culpeper is also with them on this journey. But during this time, she also comes across one of her former dalliances, who happens to be Francis Dereham. Now, back when they were both residing in the castle of the Dowager Duchess of Norfolk, they had this thing going on, which is not very serious. It was more like a casual affair, but it is enough to, get the queen into massive trouble if it was to come out. So that is what Francis Dereham basically blackmails her with. And he says, either you give me a position of prominence in the court, or I tell the king about this. So obviously she's scared, and she does not want to be found out, what with the affair going on one side, and if this comes into light and everything. So she reluctantly appoints him as her private secretary. Okay, but even she knew that was like deal breaker from the get go. She knew something was going to go wrong, and it does, because a couple of days later, someone anonymously leaves a letter on Henry's desk, which exposes this entire former alliance with Francis Dereham. And obviously, Henry, being Henry, the egotistical maniac that he is immediately enraged at the fact that the woman he has married is probably not a virgin, and she has seen other men before him. Oh my god. Considering the fact that this one's your fourth wife. Hello? Like what? Anyway, yeah, so after that, Henry promptly starts this royal investigation into the background of the queen. And but as the investigation does go on, he kind of softens towards her, because too many failed marriages in there, and one in the middle who didn't even become queen. I'll tell you about her maybe after this queen, because I left her out because she comes and goes, but well, she didn't really ever officially get the queen title, but I think it would be nice to tell you. Yeah, I'll tell you about her after Catherine Howard. So what happens is, yeah, as I was saying, so Catherine Howard is about to be pardoned by Henry right at the end of the investigation, because he thinks that she hasn't been unfaithful to me ever since the marriage, so it's okay, I can forgive her, because he's genuinely very fond of her, because she's like so little and all that. But then the investigators find out about Thomas Culpeper, and they come to the king with this information, and immediately Henry is like, execute all three of them: Francis Dereham, Thomas Culpeper, and Catherine Howard. And Catherine Howard, like, dying that young with her head on the chopping block, you have to give it to her. She's a hell of one courageous woman. With her head on the chopping block, she delivers the ultimate insult to Henry, and she says that I'm dying as the Queen of England, I'm being executed, holding the title of the Queen of England, but honestly, I wish I was dying as wife of Thomas Culpeper. And that is like the ultimate slap on King Henry's face, and then her head is chopped off. So anyway, as I was saying, I will revise my decision now, and I will tell you about Anne of Cleves. That will just show you how much of an egotistical maniac Henry actually is. So after Lady Jane Seymour and before Queen Catherine Howard, there was this one woman named Anne of Cleves. Now, as I mentioned at this point, it is Thomas Cromwell who is his royal advisor. And Thomas Cromwell himself is a Protestant sympathizer. So he urges King Henry to see reason in the fact that all the Catholic countries are now against him, and in his best political interest would be in order to side with the Protestants. And he says that the best way you can cement this tie-up is by marrying one of the Protestant princesses, and he suggests a Princess Anne of Cleves. So Thomas sends a royal painter over to the court of Cleves, and that painter draws a likeness of Anne and brings the portrait back to Henry. And Henry takes one look at the picture and says, I do not like her. She looks like a horse. I don't know how to explain that even. You can look up pictures of Anne of Cleves on the net, like I have, and I can tell you she did not look like a horse to me. She looked like quite a pleasant-faced woman. I mean, maybe a little plainer than his previous wives, but horse? I mean, what? I don't know. And even the woman who played Anne of Cleves in the series, she too was such a sweet looking woman. I mean, I was just like, you don't like her? You don't like her? Like, hello? Whatever. So, anyway, but even after that, Thomas Cromwell says that it's okay. Maybe you like her appearance better when you see her in person. Maybe the painter didn't get it right or whatever. Just let her come to court. And the thing is, back in those days, you give your word like that. You invite the lady over to court. After that, you can't just tell her on her face that, bro, I'm not going to marry you, okay? So the marriage does take place. And Henry convinces himself that it's okay, it's just sex, I'll do it. But you know what? Like, he never is able to overcome that physical revulsion of Anne. And night after night goes by and no consummation takes place. The marriage takes place, the consummation doesn't take place. And back in those days, consummation was very, very important in the royal marriage, because until that happened, you could not be crowned queen. So 6 months go by and Henry just keeps up with this drama. And finally, at some point, he comes a little bit to his senses, because he goes to Anne's chamber and says that, look, this isn't working out for either of us, and we both have the right to move on with our lives. So how about we just call it quits? We just annul the marriage. We have the grounds for it, since our marriage hasn't been consummated, and I'll confirm that in court. So, and here's the thing, Anne of Cleves is very much like Jane Seymour. So far, she hasn't given Henry any drama over the fact that he refuses to consummate the marriage, over the fact that he constantly says it out loud that he does not like her physical features. She, in fact, smiles and says that it's a pity that we did not work out as husband and wife, but I do hope we'll always remain the best of friends. Now, I do not know if that was like genuine, what do I say, like womanly standards of that time, and she was genuinely being so nice. I wouldn't be able to. I definitely wouldn't be able to, but she was. Or whether it was like a ploy to get something out of the deal at least, which did happen, mind you, because Henry was so moved by this entire I forgive you speech that he gave her a title in England, a castle, lands, and a generous annual settlement, and even the title of his honorary beloved sister. So if you can imagine that, lady came to court wishing to be the Queen of England, and went away with a generous settlement as the beloved sister of King Henry the VIIIth. Well, anyway, so this happened before Catherine Howard, and after that, well, everybody was like, but there must be a queen consort, because that's how, like, the royal couple is infinitely more important than just the king himself. Like, a queen needs to be there by his side, so people see them as the perfect couple to emulate and all that shit that used to happen back then. So after that came in Catherine Howard, and all of this happened. And obviously, before her head being chopped off, Catherine Howard did not leave behind an issue. So again, even though now we do have Prince Edward, like son of Lady Jane Seymour, but as I said, like, there must be a queen consort. So, and this one actually does happen by accident, like the lady who comes after this. Now, who comes after this is Lady Catherine Parr. So at this point, I would just like to remind you that we've come to the third Catherine here. And first there was Catherine of Aragon, then there was Catherine Howard, and now we're dealing with Lady Catherine Parr. So do not get your Catherines confused, please. So yeah, now just by chance, this Lady Catherine Parr comes to court, to the English court, and she's already married, mind you. But Henry, being Henry, likes her, pulls a couple of strings, and the Parr marriage is annulled, and she is being proposed to by the king. I mean, who says no to that, right? And there you are, next queen consort of England, Catherine Parr. And now I keep mentioning her surname because you have to keep differentiating the Catherines, otherwise at some point you're bound to just get confused down the line. So Catherine Parr. Now at this time again, Thomas Cromwell has been replaced by this man called Gardiner, who is now the royal advisor to King Henry. And it is Gardiner who has convinced Henry that even if we have broken away from the Roman Catholic Church and the Holy See and the Pope and everything, we should still be adhering, like the Church of England and you as its head, we should all be adhering to the Catholic edicts of Christianity rather than this upcoming heretical Protestantism edicts and all of that. So, if you can just take a minute to appreciate how confusing all of this must have been for the subjects. I mean, first, the Pope is the head of the church. Then your king says, "No, I am the head of the church." Then your king says, "You know what? We're going to be Protestants." Then the king says, "You know what? No, I'm your head of the church, like I'm your head of the church, but we're not going to follow Protestantism. We've broken away from Roman Catholicism, but we're going to follow Roman Catholicism only. Only difference is that the Pope is no longer your head, I am." So one moment you have to be Catholic, then you have to be Protestant, then you have to be Catholic again, and having Protestant beliefs is heresy, and you could be like executed for that. So yeah, I'm just giving you this backplot because what happens in the main story is very critical to this. So now Catherine Parr. Yes, so no one knew that Catherine Parr was actually a Protestant sympathizer. And all these ladies that she handpicks as her ladies in waiting, she handpicks them because they are also Protestant sympathizers. But then having Protestant sympathies in that day was heresy. So it was all like kept hush hush. And they would all gather in the Queen's royal bedchamber at night, and by candlelight, when they know that everyone's sleeping, they would go through these Protestant manifestos and, they plan as to how to turn the king's views towards Protestantism and away from Catholicism and all of that. And at this precise point, a little into the marriage, like King Henry has to leave for a war. And obviously, as queen, Catherine Parr is the acting regent. And this is when Gardiner, who clearly has Catholic beliefs, finds out about Queen Catherine Parr's Protestant beliefs. Now, the reason why Gardiner was working so hard to bring Catholicism back into the fold is because he again has a bigger agenda here. He is not only a Catholic sympathizer, he does not just want people to go back to the ways of Catholicism. He, in fact, his bigger plan is to unite the Church of England and the Holy Roman Empire once again, and to put the Church of England back in its place under the leadership of the Pope. So, and he has been plotting. He has been plotting with Princess Mary. Like, as you can see, so many subplots there and so much of detail. Like, I myself, I'm going a little blah blah. So I hope you'll forgive me for that one. So as I was saying, that Gardiner is there is a subplot of Gardiner and Princess Mary, because Princess Mary also, like her mother, Queen Catherine of Aragon, is staunchly Catholic. And Gardiner says that if after King Henry's death, even though Prince Edward is first in the line of succession, you are now back in the line of succession. He says this to Princess Mary. And the thing is that people are way more behind you, and they want to see you as a queen rather than that kid or that Prince Edward, because no one really forgot your mother. No one really forgot that you are her daughter. So most people think that it's you who should ascend the throne after King Henry dies. And so this plot is going on between the two of them, that after Henry dies, they will somehow put this campaign in place, the end result of which will obviously be that Princess Mary will become Queen Mary, and then she will reunite England with Rome. So because of this, oh my god, what is that? Yeah, so because of this, so Gardiner is so hell-bent on like rooting out Protestant sympathizers. And this is the exact moment when he finds out about Lady Catherine Parr's beliefs of Protestantism. And it's a crucial moment. It's a deciding moment whether you are waiting to see whether another queen gets her head chopped off or not. But before he can take this news to King Henry, Lady Catherine Parr finds out. thankfully. One woman saved with her neck. I mean, thank God. So, and she is very smart. She does not want to get her head chopped off like several ladies before her. So what she does is she quickly gathers her ladies in waitings in her royal bedchamber, and they all get their Protestant manifestos and books and everything, and they burn it in a large fire pit. And she immediately runs to Henry after that before Gardiner can make his move, and she falls down on her knees and she begs a royal pardon from Henry. And Henry, seeing that she has come to him herself and she has confessed all of this, and she's saying, I like veered off the path and I seek your forgiveness. Henry, well, he forgives her. So he's like, oh my God, she's seen the way. Ah. So anyway, hallelujah. So he decides to forgive her, and Catherine Parr is forgiven. And thus ends the saga of King Henry VIII's 6 wives. Well, one not official, as I mentioned, Anne of Cleves. So yeah. So after this, you jump to the end, and by now King Henry is pretty old and he's bedridden, and he has his entire family in the castle because the physicians have like told them that he's going to pass away soon. So during his last days, justifiably, he constantly hallucinates that his first 3 wives, there is Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, and Jane Seymour, the 3 he gave the hardest times, they come around, and their spirits or their specters, they're constantly chiding him, you know. Catherine of Aragon is like, I loved you so much, and what did you give me in return? Anne Boleyn is like, I made the mistake of falling in love with a man like you. And Jane Seymour is like, you put so much pressure on me, I gave you an heir, but then what? Then I died. All of that. And then finally he has this one lucid moment before he dies, and he asks for his children. So Princess Mary, Princess Elizabeth, and Prince Edward, all 3 are standing before him, and his last words to his 2 daughters are that, my princesses, please take care of your little brother Prince Edward until he comes of age and ascends the throne, because Edward is like just like a couple of years old at that point, and there is a regent and protector who has been appointed, who shall help him rule until he comes of age and officially takes the throne. So this is where the series ends, and it's just 4 seasons, and it's just 38 episodes, and it's bloody brilliant. So please watch it. And I'm going to give you a couple of spoilers before I end this video. Like, they will not show this to you in the show itself, but I will tell you. So you should know that Prince Edward never really became King Edward because he died at 15. And there was a lot of controversy at that point of time, because before dying, like, according to the line of succession, if he dies, the crown then goes to Princess Mary. But what he did was he wrote an edict down and signed it, and it said that his cousin Lady Jane Grey, once removed on his mother's side, should be made Queen of England after he passes away. And obviously after he passed away and this edict was opened and everyone read what was in there, people were not very happy with that. Like, some people were like, no, we should follow the to be king's orders, and some people were like, he didn't even become king himself, so the crown should go to Princess Mary. And a lot of contention takes place, but eventually the would-be king's supporters managed to put Lady Jane Grey on the throne, and she does become Queen of England, but for 9 days only. Yes. So Mary gathers all her support and plans a coup d'etat and completely deposes Jane Grey of the throne and becomes Queen Mary the First. And Queen Mary the First, well, there's another trivia in there for you. You know how we all love that cocktail called Bloody Mary? Do you know that it is named after Princess Mary or Queen Mary the First? Yeah, remember when I said that she wanted to reunite England with Rome? So now in order to do that again, like, there was a lot of bloodshed. She had a very short rule, after which Elizabeth takes over, but during her short reign, it is said that so much blood was spilled that people nicknamed her Bloody Mary. And that is where the name of today's famous cocktail, Bloody Mary, comes from. Kind of like puts you out of the mood for a Bloody Mary after you hear that history, does it not? If you didn't already know that. I mean, when I found out, I was just like, Okay, choking on my Bloody Mary right now. Whatever. Hello, Bloody Mary. Anyway, enough of drama. So that's it for the second video of the Tudors, part 2. And I do hope that you'll give this series a shot and like it, don't like it, whatever it is. I hope you'll come down and write it on the comments. And if you like the video, please hit like. If you want to share the word, please subscribe and then ask your friends to do the same. Send them the links, and I'll catch you guys in the next video, which will probably be a book review. So until then, toodles. Yeah, bye.